How's everybody doing today, chat? Let's just get my windows where I need to. And before we get started, I also just one thing that just keeps on coming to mind lately as we watch the response, and really not just lately, over the past year, really. Over the entire bloody disgusting election season, you can really tell whether somebody really believes something by looking at how they act. Like, for example, let's say I'm sitting here, there's a glass on a table, and you sit down and you're about to take the glass, and I say, no, don't touch that. There's cyanide in that. And you recoil from it, get up, and then I grab the glass and I drink from it. Now, there are two possible explanations for that. One is, I don't actually believe there's cyanide in it. And the other is that for whatever reason, I'm actually kind of cool with that. Now, take the way the Democrats have been selling this election to us, where it's like, you have to accept that we're doing genocide because Trump is this unprecedented existential threat to our democracy, whatever they consider our democracy to be. You know, it's an existential threat. You have to vote for him and everything like that. But are they acting like that? Because you have to stop for a moment and say, okay, let's assume they mean that. They really mean that. They really believe that. And they really are serious about opposing that. Well, what would they do? As if the threat is on that level, surely they would do everything possible to avert it. Which would, start with maybe not committing genocide, because the polls were making it very clear that Harris would have been winning by double digits in a number of key states if she had pledged to actually stop it, to cut off the weapons to Israel. You know, there are things like that. Just running, maybe running a candidate who didn't lose her own state in the only primary she was ever in, who, she was single digits in the 2020 primary. Nobody liked her. And nobody had any choice in the matter because they just sort of anointed her. So that would be another thing they could do. And of course, having basically thrown the election, for all intents and purposes, what they could, leaving that aside, you would expect them to be doing everything possible to prevent this happening. Scrutinize every single vote result. The fact is, given all the dodgy shit Republicans do in these elections, it would probably have been a reasonable thing to do that one way or another. I'm here in Ohio, easily one of the most just bent electoral systems in terms of vote counting mechanisms in the entire country. And yeah, they could do that. There are lots of things that they would do if they genuinely believed this and wanted to stop it. One thing they would not do, if they genuinely believed this and wanted to stop it, is just, gracefully, brag about making a peaceful return, transfer of power and stuff. And it's but that's what they're doing. So we need to just take that on board and understand what that means. Because it does not, by any stretch of the imagination, mean that they genuinely believe that he's this existential threat and want to stop it. What it does mean is that either they don't believe he's that kind of threat, or they do believe it, but they're cool with that. And either way, this really ought to be the end of anyone taking any advice from any of them, and, accepting any analysis from any of the people who've been propping them up propagandistically. And so I just wanted to throw that thought out there before we get started. Just wanted to tell you about the INESSA ARMAND translation project, a project very near and dear to my heart because it's one I'm working on. INESSA ARMAND was the first head of the Bolshevik women's section in the very early years of the Russian Revolution. Her works were suppressed by Stalin and never got translated into English until I set about doing it a few months ago. I've translated about 34 out of 36 of her essays, and I still have all of her extant letters to go. And in order to cover the cost of translating and editing all this material, I am trying to raise a total of $8,500, of which I have raised $3,854. And if you want to read the draft translations of those 34 essays that are there so far, soon to be 35, then you can do it at that link. If you want to support the project, you can do it by becoming a Patreon or with a one-off contribution to the links that I just dropped in chat.